Welcome to the car guys and welcome to the 430 Scuderia. This is the car you all said I should drive, and here I am driving it right now thanks to Car Guys fan and subscriber Steve. He's up ahead of me in the Challenge Stradale. His mate's behind me in his silver Pista. Days do not get better than this, folks. This is a great day. A great day. Welcome to 4 generations of lightweight V8 Ferraris. What we've got for you this week is the Challenge Stradale, 430 Scuderia, 458 Speciale, and of course the very latest 488 Pista. So you never see these cars all together. What also is special, you may have noticed, is that they are all Argento Nürburgring Silver. Car Guys subscriber and friend Steve has got 3 of these cars, the Pista, the 430 Scuderia and the Speciale. And of course we brought along our Challenge Stradale to complete the set. We've got all the lightweight cars, and what's even more exciting is that I'm going to get to drive the 430 Scuderia today and compare it directly with the Challenge Stradale.
But first, let's enjoy this collection of Ferrari V8 mid-engine lightweight specials. This is the perfect opportunity to see how these cars have altered throughout the generations, from 2003 to 2019. You can see the difference in performance too, from 425 brake horsepower and 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds for the Challenge Stradale, to 710 brake horsepower and 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds for the 488 Pista. Here we see the 488 Pista versus the 458 Speciale. Through the miracle of split screen-o-vision, let's compare these special cars. From the front you can see added fins on the 458 Speciale. Brakes for both cars are surprisingly the same, 398mm on the front, 360mm on the rear. Look at that fin on the 458 versus the swept area of the 488 Pista. And at the rear, a much larger side intake there for the turbos on the Pista compared to nothing for the Speciale. The duct is actually found much further back on the 458 Speciale, almost at the rear wing. You've got the deep dish lights at the back of the Pista versus the protruding retro rocket look of the Speciale.
So here we are, folks. We have these 2 lightweight V8 Ferraris, the Challenge Stradale belonging to the Car Guys and the 430 Scuderia belonging to Car Guys' friend Steve.
Light-wise, the 360's enormous headlights dominate. 431's are much slimmer. A very similar wheel design, but obviously the 360 has got far more spokes. Rear intakes, you've got enormous ones for the 430, and the teardrop shape of the Challenge Stradale is much more deeply recessed. And at the back you've got similar stripes on both and similar engine bays. The strips alongside the engine bay on both cars are made in carbon fibre, just with a slightly different design. It sets off the rear of the car beautifully.
The Challenge Stradale has obviously got the Challenge grille, so the perforated grille on the back, which looks absolutely sensational. On the 430 Scuderia, we still have a grille, but it's only on the centre part of the rear. The rest is carbon fibre. And another big difference between the rear of the cars is the placement of the exhaust pipes. So on the 430 Scuderia, they're up high, as they are now with the modern cars. And on the Challenge Stradale, you've got double pipes sat much lower down and cut into the bumper. Again, with a similar diffuser arrangement on the rear. So this is where it gets really interesting. As you can see, there's the longitudinally mounted V8, naturally aspirated obviously with carbon boxes, and you can see there's part of the exhaust system. In the 430, very similar arrangement. More carbon on this one, but you can see there, from this part of the car, they look almost identical. So the Scuderia, you can see it's little developments over the years rather than radical change. One thing that is for certain is that both these cars look sensational in silver because you just don't see them in this colour. So it's a very clean look. And when you see all 4 cars together, it really does highlight the differences between them. It allows you to see that a lot more easily. Welcome to the Challenge Stradale. Note, not 360 Challenge Stradale, as many people, including me, refer to it. Officially, the designation is Challenge Stradale. When I talked about selling this car in my garage update, many of you were rightly appalled. And it certainly would be a very, very difficult decision for me. I've never driven a Scud, and I'm really excited to see how it compares to this Challenge Stradale, and should I jump from one to the other, or keep them both? It's quite unusual to see a Challenge Stradale in silver, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to buy this car, and it's one of the reasons why I love it so much. It's a lot more stealth than the majority of bright red Rosso Corsa cars. This car came directly from Ferrari's racing experience, and they turned it into a road racer. When you're sort of bolted down in these thigh-hugging bucket seats, you are left in no doubt that you are in pretty much a race car. The only thing that this car doesn't have, which I kind of wish it did, is racing harnesses, because I had those in my F40 and they are really cool. They do make it even more of an event. Up ahead of me, I've got a huge yellow rev counter. The other dials you can't really see at all. You don't really ever want to drive it in the normal mode. You really should be in race at all times, because that will give you the crispest gear change and the best responses. You've got a classic Ferrari steering wheel with nothing on it. So remember, this is before the age of all the technology coming in. The only real piece of technology this car's got is a sophisticated traction control and launch control and paddle shift gears. The 355 F1 had the first paddle shift, the first generation. This is generation 2, and it's still fairly horrible unless you're in race mode. If you're in race mode, the changes are quite crisp. Still nothing like you get in a 430 or a 458 or a 488, but in race mode the gear changes are at least bearable. If you're in normal mode, it feels like you're slipping the clutch the whole time. There's too big a lag between the gears changing up or down. To my left, I've got the air vents, which are all manual. There's no buttons at all. You just twist them and turn them. Each one of the vents has got a ripple texture, which makes it easier for you to grab and twist if you've got racing gloves on. Clever, you see. Look at this beautiful polished carbon. This is like glossy carbon. The whole door is gloss carbon. You've got this bit of pipe down here to hold on to, and then you've got the little aluminium handle down here to open the door. It just feels like a race car. It sounds like a race car. It feels like a race car. It is a race car. Like the F40, when you look around the footwell, you can see all the welds. It still looks properly rough and industrial down in the footwell. Every cat's eye in the road, every seam between the pieces of concrete rattle through the cabin. This is a car that is all about sharp responses and delicate feel. It is incredibly important that you can feel exactly what the front wheels are doing on the tarmac, because when you're in a track, you need to be able to get immediate sense of when you're losing traction and the surface and the grip levels. Feel from this steering is absolutely superb. Oh, that was a cat's eye. But those same delicate feelings that you get on a track are a little bit of a curse when you take it out on the road, because it's forever darting about the place. Two things really dominate the Challenge Stradale experience. That's the noise when it goes, and the brakes when it stops. These are the most fearsome carbon brakes you will find on any road car. The most efficient, most fade-free, most incredible stopping power. It's just ridiculous. But without a doubt, the best thing about a Challenge Stradale is this. It's the noise. I've driven a lot of Ferraris, as you can probably guess. This sounds the best of all of them. When you get that second stage trumpet coming in, it is the greatest noise on earth. A lot of the sound deadening has been removed. The engine noise, which of course is sitting just here, is separated by a thin pane of glass. It is deafening. It's also quite hot. You can really feel the heat of the engine coming through the bulkhead. It's a cold day today, but I'm toasty in here. See, it's got all the sounds and everything of a race car. There's lots of shunt. You can hear the whines, you can hear all the engine popping and fizzing behind you. Oh my God, it's electric, isn't it? The hairs are standing up on my arms. Second gear beans, ready? This is an acoustic symphony. So yeah, how on earth is the Scud going to be able to compare with that? I'm in the 430 Scuderia. I'm chasing my own Challenge Stradale, and this is my first experience of this car. Many of you have said I should swap the Challenge Stradale for one of these. A lot of you have said I should have both. This is the first time that I'm driven it, so I can tell you exactly what it's like. I've only just got straight out of the Challenge Stradale, but this is going to be a raw review of this car. Okay, so straight away, the damping is better. It's a more compliant ride than the Challenge Stradale. It's also quieter. Gear change, even in normal mode, even in the normal sport mode, is far quicker and smoother straight away. This feels like a far more refined car instantly, and I have to say my Challenge Stradale looks amazing ahead of me. I need to get up close actually. Without a doubt, this generation of lightweight V8 Ferrari is significantly more refined than the Challenge Stradale. It'd be very interesting to hear what Steve says about the Challenge Stradale. He's never driven one of those, and I've never driven this. So this is a real interesting, a day of exploration and answers. Very similar layout inside. We've got the radio has jumped up between the vents and the actual controls for ventilation. Pretty much the same ventilation ducts, pretty much the same controls. There's a slight stickiness to this, the same as there is on mine. Steering wheel has started to get more controls being added to it. So this is the start of the Formula One inspired cockpit. We've got the engine stop-start is actually on the steering wheel, and then we've got the first appearance of the Manatino, which of course is now the mainstay. Oh my God, did you hear that Challenge Stradale take off then? Wow! I've got a pista behind me, which you should be able to see. I've got Challenge Stradale ahead of me, and I'm in a Scuderia. Days do not get better than this, folks. Did you hear the noise of that thing? Wow. I know Jerry Seinfeld has said it, but there's nothing like watching your own car being driven well by someone else. It is sensational. Wow. So gearbox wise, the changes are definitely slicker, but you do have the same slight drag between gears if you leave your foot on the accelerator. In modern cars, of course, it doesn't really matter, but in these you do have to take it a little bit easy. Just lift slightly. So you got there. So if you lift slightly, you get a smoother change. Oh, it's got a good sound to it though. All those people that have said the Challenge Stradale is leagues ahead of the Scuderia, I wouldn't say that. I think, you know, this can hold its own without a doubt. It's not as good, but it's not far off. I mean, come on. It just feels a bit more polished. But I sort of think I still prefer the ludicrously rough, raw experience of the Challenge Stradale. because that feels like a race car. This feels like a road car that's been made racier. That feels like a race car. Similar levels of speed though, I mean you can't really separate them that much. Like the Challenge Stradale, I've got gloss carbon in all the doors, but unlike the Challenge Stradale, it's a lot more refined in here. We've got a lot more upholstery, we've got more decoration, we've got more things which are, we don't have bare welds, for example. The seats aren't quite as supportive as the Challenge Stradale, so they're not quite as figure hugging, but they're still pretty good. I can see Steve bouncing about on all of these bumps. I'm bouncing less so. You can see how hard the Challenge Stradale really is. Well, let's say something about the brakes as well. They're not as good in the Scuderia as they are in the Challenge Stradale. I maintain my position that the best brakes of any Ferrari can be found on a Challenge Stradale. I love the greater refinement of the Scud. I like the quality of the fitments inside the cabin, and I do like the cabin. I think it looks really, really superb in here. I think it's got a much nicer noise than I was expecting. I thought it would be a bit more strangled, but actually it's pretty good. Damping's good, steering is good. What do I not like? Well, it's not really a case of not liking. The brakes aren't as good as the Challenge Stradale. It's not as loud, it's not as raw, it's not as visceral as the earlier car, and it definitely doesn't feel like it's a race car like the Challenge Stradale does, which means by definition it's a bit diluted. What a power plant this V8 is. Naturally aspirated V8. I mean, oh, so good. You're just not seeing the likes of this anymore. Even if you did have naturally aspirated cars, which are increasingly becoming banned, you've now got all sorts of horrible Euro things like particulate filters and Greta Thunberg pleasing power sapping devices. They're robbing them of fantastic sounding engines, and it's a real shame. Oh, listen to it. You never get tired of that. It just brings out the little boy in you. Oh, but it's got that same trumpet feel that the Challenge Stradale's got. That sort of second stage exhaust that pops its way out. A little over 5,500 revs. That's where the real music comes in. Listen to that. Listen to it. It's It's really the gearbox that lets down the Challenge Stradale. I've always said it, and you know, Sam from Seen Through Glass, he's now driven one of the very, very few manual conversions of the Challenge Stradale. He drove a beautiful blue one in America, and I have to say, that could be one of the greatest cars of all time. That Pista is the evolution of what we have driving here, and because technology is such an important part of the Ferrari story, at least now, that Pista behind us would have both of these cars for breakfast. Great-grandfather, grandfather, son. But what today proves is that Grandad can still cut the mustard. Grandad can still dance. Both of these cars offer driving experiences that you do not find really in the modern day. As good as the Pista is, and it is incredibly good, it's nothing like as raw as this. Would you bother having both? Because they are similar experiences, and I'm not sure if you had both and it was a beautiful day, would you ever take this out in preference to the Challenge Stradale? I don't think you would. I think you would always take the Challenge Stradale, unless you were trying to collect all the special variants, which, let's face it, Steve has pretty much done. All he's got to go really in terms of the hard tops is the Challenge Stradale, and all I need is this. So there we have it. 430 Scuderia, driven, enjoyed. Big thank you to Steve, number one, for getting in touch out of the blue and saying, would you like to come and see my silver Ferrari collection, and would you like to drive my Scuderia? I mean, you know, that is fantastic. So thank you so much for that, Steve. You're a legend. Thanks for watching this episode on the 430 Scuderia versus the Challenge Stradale. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed what a fantastic day this has been. Please subscribe, leave comments and likes. We read them all and we reply to many of them. Check out our Instagram page, and also check out our new website at www.TheCarGuys.TV. There'll be another Car Guys episode along next week.